welcome to 90% Native. My name is Michelle and I garden in Northern Virginia in Zone 7A. Today I have to sow a bunch of seeds that are way overdue. So I'm going to ask you a favor and just pretend like this is November, because I'm not sure what my native plant seeds are going to do, missing out on some of the cold weather that they would typically get. So first off, I am going to start with my Virginia Bluebells. I'm going to do some grasses and sedges that I really like, and they'll get their own entire flat. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to do today. And so I'll walk you through what each of the plant is. So first up is I'm going to sow the Virginia Bluebells. Virginia Bluebells are one of my absolute favorite plants of all time. They are so absolutely gorgeous in the early spring. So the bluebells come up very early spring. They're spring ephemerals. So spring ephemeral is a plant that comes up in the very early spring when there are no leaves on the trees, so it can get all that sun because the leaves aren't there, and it goes through its whole growing cycle in the early spring and then dies back before the summer. So bluebells, I'll put a picture up, but bluebells have these large glaucous kind of leaves that are really beautiful, but then just the bluebell itself is stunning. When they first open, when the blooms first open, they're pink, and then they turn into their famous blue color. A lot of times you're gonna see female bumblebees coming out, and they're gonna pollinate the Virginia bluebells. We also have moths and butterflies that'll do the same. Also, bluebells like to grow in colonies, and I would really like, in my front yard, in my backyard, pretty much everywhere, I would like to just have masses of bluebells intermixed with things like golden ragwort, and that would just be, I think, a spectacular show in the spring. As far as soil is concerned, bluebells like a medium moist soil to medium wet soil, and they'll get about 1 foot to 2 feet tall. And around here where I live in Virginia, there are parks. I think there's Riverbend Park and then Bull Run Park that actually have huge displays of bluebells along their walking trails, and it's just a spectacular sight to see. I think actually at Riverbend, one of my friends took me on a walk there, and if I'm not mistaken, we actually saw one that was white, which is a very rare occurrence. I have a few different methods that I'm using with the bluebells this year. First off, just note that I'm really late getting them sowed. Okay, so with that being said, I tried to do my fast forward cold stratification method on some of the seeds. On my old seeds here and some of my new seeds as well. So my fast forward stratification method is I just put the seeds in a slightly dampened coffee filter, and I wrap them up, and then I put them in the refrigerator for 24 hours and then the freezer for 12, and I do that back and forth. I don't use like an exact science with it. I probably should, but I don't. And the reason why I do 12, 24, 12 is because my seeds don't thaw out all the way if I do 24, 24, 24. So I've just started to do the freezer in 12-hour increments instead of 24-hour increments. But if you'll find people online that do 24-hour increments for both. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put 3 seeds in each cell. For reference, here is what the Virginia bluebell seeds look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on planting up or sowing my bluebell seeds. Okay, 1 tray of blueberries sowed. 1 tray of Virginia bluebells sowed. Now I'm gonna move on to the other ones that I cold stratified. You may notice that I used a paper towel here versus a coffee filter. Not really sure why I did that. Maybe I was running out of coffee filters, I don't know, but I won't do this again, okay? So this is like what not to do, okay? It's so much more convenient to use the coffee filters. Okay, let's see what we got under here. See, the other thing too is some of this is still frozen. This paper towel is still frozen in parts, so I'm not sure this got a really good cold, like a frost, defrost, frost, defrost cycle. So we'll just have to see what happens with these seeds. I'm just making a little hole here. It's actually not even a hole, it's a little just indentation so that I can rough up the soil over top of the seeds that I put in here. So I'm gonna put at least 3 in each cell. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just gonna cover them up. Do the same thing I did with the other flat. I'll take them outside, put the vermiculite, the vermiculite on top of them. I think I got a piece of dirt in my eye, so just an FYI. I'm blinking like crazy and all that goodness. I would just love for my entire property to be covered in Virginia bluebells. That would just be like the most beautiful thing ever. Someday. Okay, now outside for water and vermiculite. Another note about the bluebells. So I'm all done with the bluebells, but I did want to say that I saved 2 of my new packs of seeds, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cold stratify one using the fast forward method, and I'm going to cold stratify the other one just for 60 days in the refrigerator. And then I am going to grow these inside the house. So everything else that I have sowed as far as the Virginia bluebells go, I have, they are staying outside and getting all the extra cold stratification outside. But I seem to remember the first year that I did Virginia bluebells that I had some pretty good success with cold stratifying them for the 60 days in the refrigerator and then sowing them inside and letting them germinate inside. So I'm going to try that again. So I'm going to save these 2 packs for that, and maybe I'll do a separate video on that in the next couple days to show you the 2 different methods. I think I'm going to mix it up because I still have more bluebells to sow, but I'm sure that's going to get boring. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to sow is called Carex Grisea, or wood gray sedge, and I believe that Roy Diblick uses this sedge, and I think that's where I heard of it, and he uses it in some of his matrix plantings. And so I sowed some last year and I put them out in the landscape, and I really, really like them. They're a really nice color of dark mid to dark green. They have a nice form. Let's see, these ones need 60 days of cold stratification, so hopefully I have enough time in my winter. It's middle of January now, so hopefully I have enough time in my winter so that they get that cold stratification. And they get about 2 feet tall. They can take any amount of sun really, and they like more of a moist or wet environment, and that's where I have them in my landscape. What I'm doing here with a lot of these carexes and grasses is that I am just going to be popping them in any bare spots out in my woodland garden, just to get that really, really lush look. When my jack in the pulpits start to go over, then things start looking a little barren. So I just want to make sure that I have things under those jack in the pulpits to take the place of those beautiful jack in the pulpits. And also, like, the further you go down my woodland path, the more sparse my plantings get, because I haven't gotten as far as like the beginning of the path. I'm going to probably sow this a little heavier than I do like perennials, only because in the past when I have been, when I don't sow heavy with the grasses, it's just like there's like one or 2 leaves, and I don't know. Maybe I'm right or maybe I'm wrong about this, whatever, but I'm just gonna go with that this time. So anyway, Carex Grisea gray wood sedge. just like with the bluebells, I'm just gonna rough this up a little bit and give them a little indent so that I can plant them in, and then I'll just push the soil back over top. They don't need sunlight to germinate, and they're pretty big seeds considering some seeds that we work with, like I work with tall bellflower, cardinal flower, great blue lobelia. Those seeds are tiny. So you just leave them on top of the soil and throw some like horticultural grit over top. Okay, so now I'm gonna put everything in there. Well, I definitely have enough for another flat. I'm gonna just cover these up while I'm talking. So let me see what else I'm sewing up today other than the, as far as natives go, how many flats I have. I prepped up a bunch of seed flats before our first snow, because I was going to sow all these then and I didn't get around to it. Okay, so these are ready for water from underneath and vermiculite on top. Next up, I am going to be sowing wood reed grass. There's only about 100 of these in each packet, so I have 3 packets, and this particular grass is a grass for shady environments in the woodland. So when I saw that, I had to have it because I love grasses, and it's hard to get a hold of some really, really good woodland grasses. There are a lot of fantastic sunny, dry grasses, or grasses that like a sunny, dry environment. So I grew this last year and I just really loved how the plants looked. They didn't get any bigger than this last year, but they're supposed to get up to 3 feet tall. So the baby plants just looked really, really beautiful, and I just loved how they mixed in with the environment. So Prairie Moon Nursery has a really good description of wood reed grass, so I'm just going to read directly from there. They say, this attractive perennial grass has tufts of upright, sturdy, hairless stems of light green or almost blue-green color. Atop the tall stem is a dense, wavy inflorescence or whole flower head, which droops under the weight of the spikelets. During the late summer bloom, it typically towers over other vegetation, its color evolving to light tan as the grains ripen. This grass is typically found in small vegetative colonies or as scattered individual plants in the wet woodlands and damp thickets in fertile, loamy soil. So perfect for my uses. Okay, so this is germination code C60, which means it needs to be cold stratified for 60 days. So again, I'm gonna cross my fingers that I am giving these guys enough time to get enough cold that they need to germinate, because I'm doing this so late. So again, like for the 20th time, this should be done in November. Like sometime before the end of November is when I like to get this done. Not to say that I didn't get any done. I have like a ton of flats that I did get done. I just didn't get these. Okay, now outside for vermiculite and water. Okay, and the last native that I am going to sow today is wild strawberry, or I call it Virginia strawberry, but it's, I don't think I'm going to pronounce this right, Fragaria virginiana. Okay, so wild strawberry takes full sun to shade. It needs medium wet to dry soil, and the cold stratification days, that's 60 days for cold stratification. I've had really, really good success with wild strawberry, and I use it as a ground cover, and you should know that it is a very aggressive ground cover. So if you want something to take over an area, a native plant to take over an area, wild strawberry is a really good option. Just know that it will creep into your yard if you don't make sure that it doesn't. And yeah, it's a great, so, and in case you don't know, wild strawberry, the native wild strawberry, is the plant that early plantsmen, nurserymen used, is one of the plants that were used to create like the strawberries we have today in the grocery store, because the taste of these are supposed to be so good. They're tiny, but they're supposed to have the flavor. You don't want to confuse the native wild strawberry with the non-native invasive strawberry, the Indian strawberry. Those strawberries will look very, very similar, but they will have yellow flowers. So that's how you tell them apart. Their leaves look so similar, but a lot of the apps can tell the difference. I'm not really sure what the apps are kind of like hitting on to tell the difference between the Indian strawberry and the wild strawberry, but my apps seem to do a really good job at it. If you ever wanted to tell, but definitely if they're in flower, the yellow is a giveaway that it's an Indian strawberry. But just know that there's also another native strawberry called the barren strawberry, and it has yellow flowers, but the leaves are much different than the wild strawberry and the Indian strawberry, where those leaves look almost identical. These seed packets have about 60 seeds, so I'm probably going to use a minimum of two packs. And I think they're really small, if I recall. They are. They're super tiny. So what I do in the case of tiny native seeds is I just put them on top of the soil, and then I'm going to put vermiculite on top of that, and then I have this little thing. It's actually the trailer hitch to my tractor, and I use that to push the vermiculite down into the seeds, which push the seeds down into the soil. So right now I'm just pushing all this down, and I'm just going to sprinkle a few seeds on top. And again, I've had really good germination rate with these. Okay, so all done with that. Let me just get a label. I have one extra packet. I'll save that for next year maybe. I'm outside now, and I am going to go ahead and cover these Virginia bluebells with coarse vermiculite. The Bluebell stratified. Okay, I got some more native plant seeds sowed and outside in the weather to cold stratify. I did wild strawberry, Virginia bluebells, woodreed grass, and Carex Grisea. Thank you so much for joining me here. If this content appeals to you, please consider liking and subscribing or sharing with your gardening friends, and I will see you again next time.